Hello, everyone. It's now 4 o'clock. And welcome to the Township of Mapleton Council meeting. If you are able, please rise for O Canada. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Martin, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on January 16th, 2024 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any comments? All in favor? It's carried. We don't have any matters arising from the minutes or matters in the Planning Act. Go down to item 9, which is the Building Department report. And we have here resolution moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reid, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information Building Department report BD 2024-01 dated January 30th, 2024 regarding December month end and year to date. Any questions on this report? The CBO is happy to answer anything you have. I'll call a question. All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to the next item. 9.12. Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Martin. The Township of Mapleton Council received for information Building Department report BD 2024-02 dated January 30th, 2024 regarding the 2023 annual Building Department report. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. CBO?
To you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see, the end of the year, the numbers were, we did have quite a high amount of building permit fees that can be attributed to the Wallenstein feed mill and Envirolease. Those were some fairly big industrial buildings that were attributed to this year. As you can see, I've prepared an attachment with some photos and just outlining some of the development in the township. And yeah, hopefully this coming year is as great as this year.
Thank you. We do appreciate the photos. I know I looked at that myself. It's like, hey, some great things happening in the township by the photos that we're doing here. Any questions from council? All those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Moved on to 9.13. It's moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reid, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Building Department report BD 2024-03 dated January 30th, 2024 regarding Building Department fees and charges. Anything to add to that, Mr. CBO? Should have just stayed there.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, after reviewing the previous budget and being that we implemented the cloud permit software, that's greatly improved our efficiencies. So instead of having to hire additional staff, we're able to keep the the number is low enough, that we would like to just maintain the fees and charges, what have already been approved this year, add a couple additional line items and some, more items for fees and fines and rebates as well. So, we'll see how this goes, and then we can probably meet on this again in the future to discuss if we need to raise those fees some more.
Thank you. Questions from council then? Comments? Council Martin?
Yeah, it's great to see what you've added on there and the inclusion of the penalties as well, just to encourage people to to follow due process. Now, as far as the cost recovery that the consultant came in and presented, for the building fees was 18%. Is there any kind of in mind then for bringing that into like into the fees amendment for next year? And also, I can't remember when I was reading it, does that 18% include indirect fees? Because also could that be changed? Thanks.
So the 18%, so that cost recovery analysis that Hempson did, yeah, the indirect cost, all the total costs for the building department were factored into that. So that was for full cost recovery. That's essentially a good baseline, in my opinion, saying, yeah, this is what we would need to raise everything up to get every cent back for every second and every minute that we put into issuing permits and enforcing the Ontario Building Code. That's actually, it's not really that real, yeah, for full cost recovery, but whenever is there 100% full cost recovery, like for every phone call, like there's some give and take there, right? The reserve, like if we're putting a lot of money into our reserve funds every year, it says in the Building Code Act that we can raise our fees based on what is reasonable. And yeah, if we're socking away tons of money, that's really not reasonable to raise those fees. But in the future, if demand calls for another inspector or some other kind of unforeseen financial implication, then at that time we would probably look at raising them. But I think for now, it's a good baseline for where we're at. Plus, like we tacked inflation on at the beginning of this year, the CIP index, right?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councilor Tamlin. Other questions? Or comments? Councilor Ottens?
This isn't a fee related question, but you mentioned cloud permit. So now that it's been up and running fully for a while, what's the public uptake? Do you find that a lot of people are utilizing it and finding it helpful?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, so it's like getting the public to be more aware of that service is now available online, especially the way to pay for your permit as well. Saves them the trip in, especially our Mennonite community. They do have the internet, but it's sometimes more difficult for them to get here. So it has been very responsive and from the public, I find. But we still obviously will take phone calls and people when they come in, we will meet with them. It's not just everything's just cloud based, but it does take some of that load off of the admin and us with communication in that regard.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? All right, then I did read the resolution. All those in favor? Thank you. It's carried. Thank you, Tim. Moving on to the next item, 9.21, which is Finance Department. Moved by Councilor Reed, second by Councilor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Finance Report FIN 2024-05 dated January 30th, 2024, regarding the 2024 interim property tax levy. And for that council consider for adoption bylaw 2024-004 being an interim tax bylaw. Mr. Morrison, any comments on your report?
Through you, your mayor. No, this is a report that we need to enact in order to pass the bylaw so that we have the authority to bill the interim levy. The due dates as well as an indication are very similar to prior years.
Thank you. Questions from council? All in favor? It's carried. Nine point two, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Reed. The Township of Mapleton Council receive information finance report FIN 2024-04 dated January 30th, 2024 regarding the 2023 annual review of key business objectives and service goals established by the Finance Department. Mr. Morrison? Comments?
Through your worship, it's exciting to be in finance. I'd be happy to answer any questions if the report is not that
Questions
clear.
to Mr. Morrison on the report? Seeing, go ahead, Councillor Tamlin. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through your mayor. It, thanks for this, John. I mean, it just is evident in this report of how much work has gone into this during this last what year I've been in office anyway, but yeah, just to say I appreciate it because this informs all the decisions are being made, but it's goes into so much detail and there's so many new things that have been taken on. That's evident, so just say thank you.
Anything further? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Next item is Planning and Development Department. And the resolution here, 9.3.1, moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin, that Township of Mapleton Council receive planning report PL 2024-01, fee review for information and discussion, and that council provide staff direction to amend the planning fee bylaw to come into effect on March 1st, 2024. Comments, Michelle? Do you want to make any comments first?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I put together a fairly brief report. The options for you are somewhat, unlimited. It's really about, you were given the facts about a completely comprehensive review of what does it actually cost us to run the planning department. And from there, you have to decide what you're comfortable with in terms of what will be spread out over the tax base. So for some ease, I provided 4 different scenarios that are attached, as well as a copy of the option for what the fees could look like. So we've got either we remain status quo, just like our building department is doing. Now, mind you, when we did do the original increase, it wasn't completely at CPI. They've only been increased by 3%. So again, there's always going to be a bit of that shortfall there. So when such as the resulting revenue of loss of 280,000, full cost recovery, of course, being nil. And if we want to look at the direct versus indirect costs, which is the majority of what I think is happening out in the other municipalities, they're not taking in absolutely or accounting for the actual true full cost recovery, at which we're estimating revenue loss at 92. And then after some discussion with our treasurer, we thought that 32% increase might land us somewhere a little bit in the middle and much less of a revenue loss. And then if council, it is the will of council to still want to go and look at full cost recovery, which was the direction from the previous council, we could continue to increase it and phase it in over potentially 3 years or more, depending on what you're comfortable with. So what I did I took our existing fees and I literally just upped all of them by 32%. That's not exactly what it has to look like. We can have some wiggle room because through the Hempson report, they felt that we were super low in some areas and needed to do it. I just did a straight 32% across the board to give you an idea of what we could be looking at. And one of the other pieces, and the changes are marked in red, that they suggested was to remove the pieces that planning actually does not deal with, which is the disposal of surplus lands, encroachment agreements, and letters of interest from residents to purchase on open road allowances or vacant parcels. That all has sat under the planning department, but really that's the clerk and sometimes between the clerk and the public works director. And otherwise, I'm just here to help facilitate the discussion.
Thank you. And open it up to council for discussion then. Questions, comments, Councilor Reed?
I'm not sure who to direct this to through you, Mayor. If we were looking at, let's say, option 4, would these increases also include CPI? Would that be on top of it, or would CPI be put on hold until we were at 2026 and that full cost recovery?
Michelle?
So what I did was I started from the column, I took what we were charging in 2023, and I didn't add anything other than the full 32%, which again, so you can take that at plus or minus 3%.
Further discussion? Mr. Barron?
So through your worship, but, and I'm sure John's gonna look in and he's ready to answer this, but we would add CPI to, so if we decided we're gonna go 10%, well, it'll be 10 plus CPI, just to make sure that we continue up the appropriate levels.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Direction. We need to give direction, so. Anybody? Councilor Tamlin?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Michelle, you mentioned that with other municipalities, I'm looking at the indirect costs as well. So as far as the tax base covers the other staffing and other work that goes on in the township, are other municipalities that they're not doing the kind of the indirect costs for recovery as well? I'm just wondering whether that would make a difference. The other thing as well, rather than the 32% across the board, I like what you just mentioned about going back and actually looking at those comparisons. The fact that some things are way off others and some are already kind of higher than other municipalities, and to see whether some of the, kind of equalize some of those differences maybe.
So through you, Mayor, to Councillor Tamlin. If you look at the Hampson report, there's great discrepancy across the board. Exactly what they're all taking into consideration, I don't know. And they admitted themselves when they were here, they didn't do that deep of a dive in terms of the why. But when you take a look at what we're charging in comparison and you remove those indirect costs at a shortfall of 91,000, it seems to be a pretty decent comparator as an option for you to look at. But each department has a different level of service that they provide. So it can't always be a complete apples to apples comparison. And truly at the end of the day, is this maybe a titch inflated? Even if we said that if 75%, let's say, of what they're stating the full cost recovery is, they've literally taken out absolutely everything. And it's all factual. It's based on our previous, our salaries as well, and including we now have a bylaw officer, which now also then has a vehicle. So all of that is taken into consideration. So it's a matter of how, because that's exactly what everybody else is doing. So what level of comfortability? You'll never cover it completely fully at 100%, because regardless of the number of applications that come in, you still need some warm bodies in here, and whatever those applications are, all those different departments have to contribute to that. And as we grow, it will grow as well. But I can also tell you that the expenses that we're using, again, are not apples to apples, because we do have the luxury or privilege of having our own independent planner with us. And when the question that the mayor brought forward, when we ask about, are our fees higher because we have a planner? That's absolutely not the case. It's the entire reason why we brought it here, and we changed the fee structure shortly after I started to accommodate that, because whereas the fee that's charged, say $4,000 for a zoning amendment here, the county currently charges over $7,000. So I can assure you that that is definitely not the case.
Other questions? Comments? Direction? We have those options, or make one up. Council Martin.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the things I don't see in the report is actual like cost mitigation strategies. So I see like the four options, obviously, on how to, what sort of philosophy we want around the fees. But one of the kind of premises of requesting a report was around like no expenses ever fixed, right? So what are some strategies we could do to like I understand the options, but are there any ways in which we do business that could be streamlined to try and affect that 280,000, which again, isn't even really a real number because you've kind of indicated the comparators and are tricky to actually state, right? The 280,000, the revenue loss, even on the building department side, we kind of said, okay, here's the report. Great, thank you. But we're going to keep doing what we're doing. That was on 18%. On 84%, we're suggesting, phasing it in is one of the options, implementing it in full, ignoring the indirect costs. But I feel like we might be missing something, that there might be some other strategies we could, because 84% just doesn't work for me.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm all ears and open to hearing whatever it is that you think we would be able to discount, because we do as much as we can electronically. And so that comes at a cost. We also have Cloud Permit, which hopefully will be going live come this March. But at the same time, I still need humans here to review. I don't use an awful lot of paper other than to post. I'm not sure what other, like the indirect costs that we talked about. So again, those are the things like whatever it is to cost to have that office space available, the technology, the carpeting, the lighting, the supplies that I use. I don't, and I have legislative requirements. I have to follow all these steps. I have to put mail out. I have to be able to send it to different people. Trust me when I say to you, I'm not looking for extra work to do, or I'm not taking on projects that aren't necessary. So other than, I know you talked about previously in council, our service levels are great. So, but whether I return a call within 24 hours or 2 weeks, I'm not sure how that's going to save us anything. I don't do anything that's not unnecessary. So I don't know where else to find a cost savings. If you don't, again, like I said, that's 91,000 that would come off if you immediately take off the indirect costs, and we don't talk about, we're not trying to recoup in any way, shape or form, how much it costs for you to sit through zoning amendments, how much we pay the community, our committee of adjustment. That all gets factored in as well. So I honest to goodness, don't have anything else off the top of my head to offer, but
All right.
happy to listen to anything that council has to suggest that we can run the numbers for.
It's actually a difficult position for council to actually suggest what needs to be cut, as we don't know exactly everything that gets done in the first place. So that's very difficult for council to say we're not going to cut anything, or we're going to cut this or that when we don't know everything, all the details. Did you follow up?
No, I was going to say, if I was smart enough to do her job, I'd be sitting there and not here. So hence the question.
Does the fees that we're imposing here, does that have any increase in staffing to cover? So are these fees also looking to cover a future staff member?
I don't have anything else built in to expand the department. Now, mind you, in 3 years, hopefully, when we have all of our water and wastewater and our urban boundary expansion, that's when our building department is definitely going to have to pick up on another person, and our chances are we will get busier and we'll reassess closer to that time.
I take that as a no then, at this time. Gotcha. Any other questions and comments then? Direction?
One more question. So option 3, what, I was just looking in the other report. So what sort of, fee increase would be required? Or what would be the savings to eliminate the indirect costs? Because what's the indirect costs were roughly what, 17%, 15%?
Do you have an answer, Michelle? I don't know. Maybe Mr. Morrison? I don't know who's would have to answer that.
You mean if we go with the eliminating all of the indirect costs and just, so the revenue loss being 92,000 roughly, is that what you're saying? If we went, that's what you're referring to, right, for number 3? So what the percentage is?
Through you, your worship, I believe what it would really mean is that some of these increases in years 2 and 3 could be deferred completely indefinitely. So to the tune of 91.8 according to the report.
So sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but we'd still, our goal and hope is still to have at least another 32%
Yes.
increase to help us come even close to where we would really like to be on a comfort level. Now, if you want to choose to phase that in a different way, I suppose that's an option to come forward, but then every year we delay it is another year we fall behind.
Again, opened up for thoughts, comments, Councillor Ottens.
Is it possible to do option 4, part 1, and then revisit this in a year to see how reality compares to the Hemson report's projections?
Everything's an option on the table for council to choose if that's,
That way we at least play catch up with our fees, and then we kind of have, you know, some,
so your thought is to just to choose option 4.1,
With-
leave point 2 and point 3 off for now and revisit that next year.
right,
Okay, there's an option. Option number 5.
option 5.
I know it's very difficult. It's pretty heavy to have these kind of increases. Certainly not what we've not been about for the last number of years, so. I think Mr. Barron has an idea for option number 6. Please go ahead.
Through your worship. So I'm clear, option 4 is increase the revenue loss of the full 280. To full cost recovery, right? So implement the 280 over 3 years. Am I right in assuming that?
Yeah, as option number 1, if you implement not option number 1 over a 3-year period.
Right.
Is that the same as option number 4? Or is that different?
So sorry, so option 4 is implementing the increases of the revenue loss to cover the revenue loss of 280, but over for 3 years. Is that, am I?
Go ahead.
Saying that?
Yeah, so that's that was an option to go, yes, full cost recovery over a 3-year period. And what I heard Marlene, Councillor Otten's request was that we maybe forego the 3-year and put that decision on hold by just simply increasing it by the 32%, whereas Councillor Martin's initial thought was just simply removing the indirect costs and whatever that, but we would still, our request was to still at least increase it by 32%, and then we can work out the numbers to come back with. But yes, as of 2024, the full cost recovery would be the 280.
Go ahead.
So maybe obviously the appetite to go and recover that full 280, from what I can gather here anyway, is maybe not there. And I guess what I maybe would like to suggest, and I don't want to overstep here, but option 3 is a direct cost recovery. So any indirect costs are not included, which leaves us at a deficit of 92,000. And then what if we took that 92,000 loss of revenue and implemented over 3 years, as opposed to the 280 over 3 years? Would that be more palatable?
So what you're suggesting is that we look at the number of 92,000 as the loss, and using the idea of doing it over a 3-year period, and 92,000 divided by 3 over the 3-year period. Is that what you're suggesting? A little bit, trying to understand it here.
So for instance, like I said, the 280 seems to be maybe a point of contention with council. However, just like we mentioned, eliminating the indirect costs brings us to a loss of revenue of 92,000. And if we're able to do that either fully on 1 year or over the 3 years, I think it maybe gives council hopefully an easier time with trying to get where we want to go without having to put this onto the taxpayer.
Always the goal is to remove it off the taxpayer, and as a user fee, goes to the user. So slowly eliminate the fees. I like the idea of slowly eliminating over years instead of trying to do it all at once. I don't think it's right away. It could be troublesome. Well, either way. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this brings any more comfort to council, but again, as I said, without the ability to look at, some cost mitigation, when we talk about the time that's spent, that gets put into those indirect costs, you're still paying Jamie to be here every day. You're still paying John. You're still paying Larry. You're always coming to council. So those are some of those fees that exist regardless. We're just not recouping them from the portion of their time that's spent in planning. If that helps make a decision.
We cleared that up like mud. Perfect. Certainly not an easy decision, council, and looking at the numbers and having these options and more options being tossed around. So the question I have right now, and I'm going to go ahead, Councillor Tamlin, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, okay, through your merit, just I'm leaning towards more for this first year, removing the indirect costs for the 92. And also during that year, coming back again and looking at to see where there's big differences in the fees, to add those in first to bring them more in line, say with the counties, one like your example you gave, Michelle, and then look at the numbers. Then.
All right. Didn't quite get it. Let's try it again.
So what Councillor Martin was suggesting was removing those indirect fees. So the cost recovery there, revenue loss is 92. And then so what would that be then? Would that be 16%-ish, 20-ish over the year as an option?
Mr. Morrison,
Um, through you, your worship, I think a better solution right now, since you're debating whether you want to impose the indirect costs or not, is simply to accept the suggestion of Councillor Otten and increase the fees by 4I and then have staff redirect a more thoughtful approach going forward.
okay. Well, Councilor Allen, do you want to make that motion and put it forward and then we'll see where that goes? Say again?
Do you want me to officially say that?
Yes.
Just say sure.
Sure works.
All right. Yeah, I'll make the motion that we go with option 4.1 only and add that we revisit it in a year to see if we need to continue with that.
Okay.
Path.
Do we have a seconder for that? Okay, no seconder, doesn't go forward. Does council want to push this? Councilor Martin? I too am having difficulty with this, so.
Yeah, no, I think the most palatable for me is perhaps the one, the CAO, option 6, phasing in the direct cost recovery option. It would be maybe prudent just to see what that looks like as far as numbers go, mapped out, but
So a further
That's what I would
report,
propose.
further report on option 6, it would be beneficial then.
it would be helpful for me
Sure.
anyway to just.
I
make
want
sure-
to, I'm a visual person, I
Yeah.
need to see that. Go ahead.
To your worship, so that's, I'm glad we're maybe tabling this, but I guess I wanna, if I'm able to, please come back a little bit. I know there was an ask about finding efficiencies, and I guess I feel that I need to probably speak up on that. The planning department right now is very, there's Michelle, Lynn is on board, but not full-time, and we have a bit of Maggie's time. And so we can absolutely go find efficiencies. However, I would also say that the way it's being run now is extremely lean, probably the leanest department we have in our entire township. So we absolutely will go try to find some efficiencies, but it probably will be difficult given the amount of staff we have running that fairly extensive department. So I just wanted to throw that out as well. Everything can be improved, but sometimes it's a little bit harder. And I would say that with this department. But certainly we can come back with the 92,000 in options and describe those options.
All right, so I personally would like to see another report coming back, looking at those options. Councilor Reid.
Sorry, just a quick question through you. Whether we do 4.1 or option 6, would we also be looking at averaging out some of those fees that are way off and making them more palatable across the board there too, compared to other municipalities? Or are we just looking to raise them all in a general sense?
Michelle?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Reid. When you say the ones that are way off, are you referring to the option 4 that I provided at 32? Or are you referring to the ones that were like 184 as far as the Hemson report goes?
Yeah, so ones where we were either charging way under or we were above already. Are we trying to, in any of these options, are we averaging those out to the 32? Like, so if we were charging $1,000 and everyone else is charging 3, are we still going to increase those ones to 3 or just with the percentage increase?
When we set these, not obviously the ones, but originally, we revisited all of our fees and we did our best without doing a full comprehensive review based on the fact of who we have, and we don't have any other third party besides our engineer. But again, all of those things are paid out of the deposits. So anything extra does not come out of the tax base regardless. And so that's kept, certain things down. And we truly did do a comparison with the others. So I believe originally, as it sits in what's already been approved by council, is not too far off. I would say that we also agreed in the planning department that the ones that had those huge increases do not necessarily adequately reflect. And there's some that appear that perhaps, when you look at the deposit that they're taking to pay off those other fees, I think that contributes a little bit to it. But again, after having meetings with John and truly looking at the budget and what we're spending, that's where the 32 came from. And that's why I took 2023 and just averaged it. Would I potentially then take a closer look if that is council's desire? Then I will move those around, but in no way, shape or form did any of those go up to the extreme that was suggested.
Were you referring to the planning fee review that was on the Hempson report that
Yeah.
sort of looked at everybody's numbers? And how some of our numbers are quite high compared to what higher or? Mhm. Yeah, there's different ones, you look at, what our plan of subdivision fee is looking at for 12,500, then you look at Center Wellington at 41,700. But then you see something as low as, Gulf Moss at 6,500. So they're right all over the map, the numbers, they're not consistent at all. Now, some of the fees on here, I know the county redid their fees just 2 years ago, when they did their fees over, and 3 years ago. 2019, was that when they did their fees? I know it came into when they told us we had to change our fee schedule after we'd already done our fees, so it wasn't a good time for us. So just look at some of the fees that we're charging and catching up to, or sometimes surpassing what the county's doing as well. But it's always interesting to me, you always see some, like the plan of subdivision account. We never had one before. Account top up for plan, now we're putting 10,000 in, which is, what's that for? Is that something we're implementing, that 10,000?
Thank you, Mayor. When you look at that in a subdivision, so the subdivision applications go through the county. Prior to that, we are the ones, as in the township, that do all of that upfront work. So what we have them do is fill out a small pre-application, pre-consultation. So the engineer, everybody gets involved, including the county, to look at the base of what a subdivision. So we usually work on that for a couple of years before they actually make a complete submission. So all the background work gets done with us, and that's why we have such a large deposit that comes in. If anything, I would agree with Hempson that we've been undervaluing the administrative costs that takes. So that's where those fees come from, not because we have a subdivision application.
No, I just found it interesting that, we haven't had one in the past, and most other municipalities didn't have one either. On that one, which, I know we do a lot of the work prior to that. That's something we weren't recovering at all. And most municipalities aren't, and that should be recovered, so. Other options? Someone want to table it, come back with number 6 with some information? Go ahead.
I think I'd like to motion that we look at the option 6 and be able to see what that would look like first before we do any kind of decision making tonight.
So you want to postpone this decision and have a further report with option number 6?
Yes.
Okay. Seconder? Council Martin, thank you. So on the table, we have a postponement of this with a further report coming back with other options, including option 6, what Mr. Barron had pointed out. Any conversation on that? Michelle?
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a point of clarification, looking at option number 6, phasing it in over how many years?
3.
3? Thank you.
Any further conversation? All in favor? That's carried. So postpone that for now. Thank you, everyone. 9.4 is the Recreation Department. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the Recreation Report REC 2024-01 dated January 30th, 2024 regarding Recreation Department Review 2023 be received for information. Amy.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm really excited to bring this report to you. A lot of it you'll have already seen, hopefully, happening throughout the year. I'm looking forward to getting to the end of the report where we're going to talk about some new things that are up and coming for 2024. So as you're all aware, we have our wonderful before and after school program where we have lots of fun doing crafts, activities, and we continue the learning and education that's happened throughout the school day. Next slide, please. And we've been having some annual family gatherings with our school program families, and it's a lot of fun to bring the families in and do activities with them as well. One thing that we're really excited about also is the enrollment of the program. As you can see in our very first year, 21 and 22, we didn't offer before school. The following year, the before school program was a little quieter with 15 children and 1 staff member. And it has grown this year, and we are seeing 22 to 25 kids. And we have 2 mornings a week where there's actually about 27 kids in the before school program. And we are completely full in the afternoons. And there's a lot of excitement around next year's registration already. We're fielding a lot of phone calls about people who are looking forward to that registration opening later this week. Next slide, please. Our summer camp programs, we'll be seeing shortly that although it's snowy and cold here, we will be opening our summer camp program registration, and we'll be looking at hiring some summer camp staff. We are excited about the 8 weeks we'll be bringing forward, and we'll be running again from the MCC. It's just the perfect location to offer our camp programs. So we continued with our PD Day camp, holiday camp, and March break camps this year. And we added in some mini movers and makers, which is a toddler program where they do some singing, dancing, and crafts. And then they have sort of a free open gym concept that happens for about an hour once a week. Our youth socials have grown from about 30 kids when we first started, and we have over doubled that. So I think our last social that was attended, we had 64 kids come out. We're really excited. This is the kids in grades 7 to 9. And what we were happy about this year, and we didn't anticipate this happening, was that our grade 9s returned. They wanted to come back and still come. And so we typically figured they'd go to high school and wouldn't want to come and necessarily see us anymore, but they do, and we're so happy about that. So we're looking forward to our next one that's coming up for Valentine's Day. The Drayton Santa Claus Parade, our before and after school program, kids filled that float with their families, and it's always a lot of fun for them. We worked with Economic Development for Culture Days and Canada Day this past year, and of course our picnic table project, which will be coming to light again, hopefully later this spring. We'll get some buy-in from some other schools that would like to participate within Mapleton. The public skate and pickleball schedules are still up and running. Both of those activities are still being well attended. I attended public skate this past week and was shocked at how many people were out, so it was nice to see that. So our upcoming, Maggie, thank you. Upcoming is Mini Makers and Movers, our Enchanted March break week-long camp, our Valentine's Day Carnival, so we're looking forward to that, and our Mapleton Summer Camp will be opening for registration. New for 2024 is we're offering some program for kids in grade 2 and 3. It's not something that we've done yet, other than our summer camp programs or before and after school program. So we're going to start with a Valentine's Day event for them to come and see us and do some activities. We're also going to do a grade 8 skate mix and mingle to give the opportunity for those kids who will be coming together next year at Drayton Heights to start to get to know each other and hang out and have some time together. We've also introduced a games night, a junior youth night for kids in grades 4 to 6. It was well attended. We were shocked at the response we got for that. So we're really happy about that. We had about 40 kids come to that, and it was a great night. They had a lot of fun. And then we have our Family Day Fun Fair that's coming up at the arena, and we're really excited about the sponsorship we've received from that, from PharmaSave, the Moorfield Optimist, as well as the Legion is going to be providing a dinner that night. And then the fire department will be helping us out with a few things happening that day. I believe that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Abby. Good report. Council Reed.
Through you, Mayor, not so much a question, but a comment. I love seeing the different age group things happening. And I know some kids that attended the games night and they had a heyday, like they just loved it and couldn't wait for you to tell us when the next one was. The only question I did have, with the Upper Grand District School Board, for September next year, are we only offering Drayton Heights or are we thinking about Moorfield again?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Reed. Moorfield has not grown enough. They do not have enough enrollment within their community to warrant a program at this time. So we will be continuing with Drayton Heights. We do, however, still have the opportunity. We still do have the agreement with them that if there is growth in the near future or enough children, parents in the area need it, we can take a second look at that anytime.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's received. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 10. Item 10.1 moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that bylaw number 23-064, being a provisional bylaw to authorize the improvement of the Brant A and D drains, was read first and second time and provisionally adopted on the 12th day of December 2023. Now hereby read a third time, signed by the mayor and clerk, and finally enacted this 30th day of January 2024. Any questions? All in favor? It's carried. Next one here, item 10.4, moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens. That bylaw is numbered 2024-004, 2024-005, and 2024-006. Be hereby ready first and second and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. Any questions or comments on those? I'll call a question. All in favor? It's carried. There is some correspondence for council information there for you. Anybody wishing to discuss any of those items? Moving on then. We have item number 13. We do have a notice of motion introduced by Councillor Reed, that the township be able to council investigate the cost implications of including council members in Mableton staff health benefits plan, and that the CEO direct the finance department to prepare a staff report outlining a cost breakdown and the various health benefits included. This will be coming to our next council meeting. Any other business on item number 15? Seeing none, we have a closed session. Moved by Councillor Ott, second by Councillor Tamlin, the township able to council move into a closed session to consider the following subject matters: review and adoption of the closed minutes, January 9th, 2024, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, a position plan or instruction to be applied to any negotiations to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality. All in favor? It's carried. Take it 10 minutes.